Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 5th and tonight's movie is Missing Couple. This is a 2024 found footage movie about this van life couple that goes missing and you're trying to figure out what happened to them. As time goes on, more and more found footage movies start taking the influencer angle, and I think that's a great idea. There's a lot to explore there. Social media is such a huge part of how people perceive others and how information is disseminated in the West, at least, that there's a lot that you can explore with that in the context of a found footage movie. Apparently, this couple got this new property in the middle of the woods, and apparently, it's built on the location of a camp during World War II. They might be referring to an internment camp in World War II because after Pearl Harbor got bombed, there was like systemic discrimination against Japanese people and they were eventually sent to camps. Or they might be talking about something even more sinister that they made up. I don't know. One of the things that I saw a lot in the trailer is I believe they're called trail cams, or like these black and white grainy outdoor like night vision cameras that are used at night, and the frame rate is incredibly slow. I think it's 1 frame per second. You might be able to do something really interesting with that, or it might just facilitate easier jump scares. I don't know what they're going to do with it. There are a lot of really interesting found footage influencer movies, like Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, Spree, or Death of a Vlogger. So this has the potential to be really good. I'm going to go give it a watch. I don't know if you can hear that, it's raining outside. Don't worry, it's a reference to this movie. It rains in this movie too. Anyway, I thought that this was pretty good. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It has a very simple premise, and although it doesn't execute it quite as well as something like lost footage of Leah Sullivan, they still did stuff that's pretty good with this. One interesting thing about this movie is that it's really two storylines happening in parallel with each other, or like cutting back and forth. You have the original story with the van life couple moving to this like farm out in the middle of nowhere, and then you have this other man who's running a YouTube channel, I think it was called like Found Persons Report. And apparently the whole point of the channel is for him to find the missing couple. One big part for a lot of these influencer found footage movies is the difference between how people act when they're on, like when they're recording for something, and how people act when they're just living their lives. This is a movie where the differences are comparatively subtle. It's not like they're nothing like they are on camera in real life. But you do see them get into disagreements or arguments off camera a good number of times in this movie. Not enough to make it seem like they have a bad relationship, but definitely enough to indicate that their life is not as idyllic as they want people online to think it is. And the movie sort of uses that as a springboard because the owner of the channel Found Persons Report starts speculating that because of those little things that he saw in the footage that he found, they're actually in an abusive relationship and she's scared of him. Even though there's not really any evidence of that either. There's also sort of a difference in camera presence between the two influencers, Austin and Jana. Jana definitely feels a lot more like natural in front of the camera. Austin, on the other hand, did not feel nearly as natural, on camera at least. He was fine during the offline parts of this movie, but there were a few points during the recordings where he was smiling, and you could tell he was just smiling because he thought, wait, I should be smiling right now. I was interested in seeing what they were going to do with the trail cam. There are a lot of found footage movies that have a sort of, I guess, gimmick, like a new way to present these types of scares. I thought they were going to do something with the frame rate, and arguably they do kind of do, but I think what really happened was that the effects that they were using look a lot more believable with really low quality, choppy, grainy footage. Most of the really intense parts you see through the point of view of the trail cam. The main spooks in this movie are like shadow creatures. You never really even learn what they are, but they just look like black humanoid shapes. But at the very end of the movie, I was looking close and I was like, wait, are those just people in black zentais? Because I kind of saw like that spandex sheen. But for the most part, this is one of those movies where what really scares you are the things that you're not seeing. Which does serve a pragmatic purpose for a low-budget movie. I actually don't even know how low-budget this movie was. Apparently they couldn't get the right to a bunch of like intellectual properties to the point where they had to blur out the TikTok logo and censor out things like TikTok or Instagram. But I still think I prefer that approach to the ones where they just come up with names that are very obvious references, like uploading on MeTube or having a U space. Overall, the characters were pretty compelling, but obviously the best character of this entire movie, and by far the best performance, was that of Arlo, the golden retriever. He did great. And he doesn't die. At least if he does die, you don't see it. This movie is nothing groundbreaking, but you could tell that the people making this knew what they were doing and they had a vision going into it. This probably shouldn't be someone's first found footage movie. It's not bad or niche, it's just not as spectacular as a lot of other choices you can go with. But if you do like found footage horror movies, I would say check it out. And now I want to talk about some spoilers. Pretty much right away, I got weird vibes from the owner of the channel Found Persons Report. The way he talked, and especially the word choices that he used sometimes, were just really off-putting. Like, there was a day where he woke up before, like, another day of shooting, and he says, "Let's make something happen today." It took about 30 minutes for me to start wondering if he was the reason why this couple disappeared. And it wasn't very long after I started wondering that he said he's been getting comments and DMs from people saying that he has something to do with their disappearance and how absurd that is. So the fact that they were acknowledging it that early on made me think that that was a red herring, and it did end up being one. Not that he's innocent, though. It's revealed towards the end of the movie that they actually had a stalker and they got into an altercation with him. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that the stalker would go on to start the channel Found Persons Report. And when it comes to what actually did lead to the couple disappearing, you know, there are moments where I'm gonna say something and I think I should look that up really quick just to make sure I don't have a foot and mouth moment, and I just had one of those. I'm glad I looked it up. They were talking about this World War II camp in Mississippi, Centerville, and I thought they made that up for the movie. I looked it up. They didn't. It actually was a place. It was originally from the Confederacy, but they adapted it for use in World War II. But in the Wikipedia page about the camp, there was nothing about a slaughter of thousands of black people at that camp, which is what they talked about in the movie. So I thought that that was something they made up for the film. But then I double-checked, and no, that actually was something that was alleged. It was alleged by one guy who wrote a book, and they did actual investigations into it, and they didn't find any merit to the claims being made. So including what was probably a fake story about a real place in this movie is a really weird call. But whatever, it turns out that what they were experiencing is not a stalker or an intruder. It was definitely something supernatural. And for the most part, the scares that are executed with these shadow beings are pretty effective. As previously said, you mostly just see them on the trail cams, which are very low frame rate and low quality. But I was right in predicting the fact that they did sort of use that to their advantage. It's really hard to gauge exactly how fast things are going at a glance when the frame rate is that bad. And there were a couple moments where they accelerate really fast and it sort of catches you off guard. Another thing this movie does a couple times is those sort of like unacknowledged spook in the background type of thing. The first one was pointed out by the owner of the channel Found Persons Report, and I looked closely at where he was saying that there was someone standing there, and I really didn't see anything, but there were a couple points where you saw a shadow person in the background just standing there watching. There are a few good moments of drama, a few good character moments, a few good horror moments. Overall, it is a decently executed movie. I personally think that the lost footage of Leah Sullivan did most of the ideas presented here significantly better, but this still isn't bad at all. And that's all I have to say about that. Alright, thank you for watching.